Welcome to the Keeping IT Real podcast. This podcast features honest and transparent conversations about what it takes to manage corporate technology and expenses today. Each episode, listen to true and personal stories from IT professionals who are working hard to make sure their business stays connected and competitive. I'm your host, Jethro Castillo, and let's meet our next guest.
Today, I am joined by Kelenda Allen-James, an Assistant Vice President of Information Technology. Kelenda is an IT professional, speaker, and advocate for diversity in technology, focusing on professional development, women, and people of color in tech, and encouraging youth to pursue STEM careers. Through her podcast, Study Hall with Kelenda the Tech, and her publications, she shares insights to empower individuals navigating the tech industry. Kelenda, thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So this is cool. I definitely want to ask about the podcast and your writing and what kind of inspired you to do that. But let's kind of start from the beginning. How did you kind of get started in the world of IT?
So I always wanted to help people, but I didn't want to touch people. So at the beginning of my career, I just decided to specialize in nonprofit technology. Back in the 90s, who wants to donate to an AOL account? So I wanted to provide affordable mission-based technology to nonprofits so they can collect the funds, have the operations to serve their communities.
And you've kind of just been doing that ever since you found that calling and you just
Yes. So I've been in this industry for 20 years, helping the homeless, mentally ill, children with autism, Title I schools. Those are schools where 95% of the student population is at the poverty line and on free lunch. Religious day schools, other religious organizations, nonprofits that are serving their community, and I'm helping them access affordable technologies.
I think this is really awesome. How did the podcast and your writing, when did that start to come into play? When did you start to want to create things?
So during the pandemic, I noticed there was a lot of self-improvement advertisement across the social media webs. And a lot of this self-improvement was at a very multiple $1,000 price point. And many marginalized communities who lost access to their in-person service jobs that were closed, like health and wellness, different restaurants that were closed due to the lack of in-person activities, were turning to technology as a career change. And I wanted to offer Study Hall with Kelenda the Tech to help people break into technology and find time for professional development with affordable entry-level price points as they were exploring their careers. I didn't want anybody to expend resources they did not have on high-priced boot camps that they weren't for sure they were ready for.
So, we talk about that, the industry that you chose to be in, your writing and your podcast. It sounds like you were somebody who likes to, one, who is passionate about what they believe in, but two, like wants to do things their way, in the sense that you saw a need and you wanted to figure out you wanted to help do that. So you wrote, you helped with tech, and you started creating. How has that been? It's never easy to start things from scratch and do things on your own, but it's also very rewarding from my perspective. So what is it like from yours?
So my mission statement personally is that technology builds community. When I send a Chromebook home with a child, it elevates the whole family. Now the mother can pay a bill online and not pay the check cashing fee. The father can apply for a job when there's no paper applications at the business. So me sending a Chromebook home just doesn't elevate the student and their education. It provides access to the entire family.
Yeah.
When I set up a Zoom hybrid session, an older adult in isolation can still meet their friends for bingo or chair exercise if they're not ready to come to in person because of their immune issues.
When, and this is a pretty general question I ask, but I'm very curious to hear it from your perspective. When it comes to IT and tech, what are you most excited about? But also, what are you most concerned about?
So I'm most excited and concerned about the misinformation about artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence has been here. It's called spell check. And that the robots are taking our jobs. No, robots are not taking our jobs. Our jobs are changing, and our jobs are going to be more back to manufacturing to assemble the robots. And it's going back to programming to program the robot to do the task we want. So humans will never be separate from the artificial intelligence. But what I am afraid of, all the players are not in the development. There's been reports of self-driving cars having a higher likelihood of hitting a darker skinned hued person because the initial data set didn't have enough people of color. I am afraid of the artificial intelligence misaging a young Black girl with AI face recognition because the Black don't crack. And I don't want somebody using assistive technology to meet a companion of the night to use their AI to be like, can you tell me how old this woman is? And misage a child. So these are what I'm afraid of, that we don't have enough of the actual users, the actual data sets, the actual testers that represent the full scope of the world and not just a small working set of workers in Silicon Valley.
That's right. It's we have biased data, and that will only the fear is that we will just have biased data, and that will lead to just exacerbate the separation, the discrimination that already exists today. The fear is just makes it a lot more pronounced. And so I appreciate you bringing that up. I think that's a really real fear. With that being said, what are your hopes to make sure that that doesn't happen?
So what I'm evangelizing is making time for professional development. So career changers, people who have had their job opportunities shift post-pandemic can access technology careers, that they have the resources to explore the wide weight of technology. So when they're in their day-to-day work, the companies developing these technologies have a true representation of society in their companies. Because your first beta testers are the workers.
That's really cool. You're like, we're gonna grassroots this. We're gonna increase our representation by just being, by pursuing STEM, by being in tech, and being a true representative. It's funny that you mentioned that, because this podcast, I was just talking about this with Todd. This podcast has primarily been white men, and it's just really nice. Like you, and unfortunately, that is a lot of the people that I interface with in this world. And so I can see how the bias, the lack of good data needs to change. And so I think, I just think that this is very, very interesting. That being said, to be able to do this, you have to learn. You have to consume information. Where do you go to kind of keep up to date with all these things so you can continue to arm yourself with ammunition?
So the first place I start is my local library. Many of our local libraries have shifted, and they have added more technology options to the traditional paper book. So with my local library system, we are offered free LinkedIn Learning with our library cards. So you can access the whole LinkedIn Learning database for free, have any certificates you earn print out with your name on it. And this is the first free, accessible way to access new information and new entry-level certifications for free. Another source I use is the actual books, paper old-fashioned books in the library. My local library branch is the children's library, but the librarian will let me order books from the big people library across town and have them delivered. So I can get the CompTIA A+ book, always in stock at your local libraries, to really see the entry-level terminologies, the day in the life type conversations that this work would bring to you. And so these are great ways to explore at a low cost to see which path you want to be on before you access an expensive formal education or boot camp scenario.
And now you are someone who is, I guess, a little bit beyond the entry level, a lot of it beyond the entry level. What do you do to keep up with the more advanced understandings of what you need to know about your career and your job?
So one thing at the advanced technology level, you can't just know your technology. You have to know your business. So being in the nonprofit sector, one of my go-to publications is the Journal of Philanthropy to find out where big donations are being given. Following the money will let me know which organizations have the opportunity to have the conversation about pivoting more to technology. Understanding my nonprofit funding. Is this program built on a grant? One-time money, then it's gone? Is this department being funded on the general ledger? The money's going to be there day in and day out. Does the funding become restricted based on who can use the equipment? A lot of times, Department of Education money is on an 80-20 split. 20% for operation, 80% must be directly to a child. So when I am buying computers for a school, I have to get kid-sized keyboards to leverage it against the 80%. I'm not bringing in I9s for third graders. No auditor is going to accept this. So if I don't understand the business, I'm doing a disservice offering technology.
Yeah. So business, technology, your role. What does your day-to-day look like as Kelenda? How do you continue your mission day by day?
So day to day, I am sitting in the meetings with the on-the-ground program directors. These are the people planning programming for the community. They are setting up the bingo for older adults. They are setting up chair yoga for health and wellness for the community. They are setting up mental health services to access the community who are in pain. And so I'm in conversations with them to elevate their programming, leveraging technology. So in the mental health space, I'm making sure we have all the HIPAA and our clients feel private and safe to come talk about their concerns. In the older adult community, we have not taken away the newsletter. When they come in, they're not told to hit up a QR code. They are offered an in-person jovial bulletin board. They are offered a print newsletter, which can also be found in a copy to their email if they didn't come into the center to pick up the paper copy. So I am offering technology solutions. It is a technology solution that aligns with the core mission of the community.
And meeting the community where they're at and not trying to push them to be somewhere that they're not necessarily comfortable with initially. For example, going paper instead of making them scan a QR code, which is not foreign to me, but definitely potentially foreign to a bunch of other people, especially without tech education. When I ask the next question to IT leaders, there are challenges, and then I talk to people in nonprofit, and there are challenges as well, different challenges as well. So, but I'm curious, especially with the way you talk about your life and your mission, what is the biggest challenge you're facing in your role right now, and how are you tackling it?
So for the nonprofit technologists, the technology skills are the same for-profit and nonprofit. But the soft skills change for the nonprofit technology leaders. Many of our nonprofits are run by educators, social workers, so they come from a philosophy of groupthink, group decision-making. Nonprofits' goal is generally to zero out at the end of the year, not necessarily make a profit. So starting a conversation with, I can save $30,000 doesn't necessarily move the needle at a nonprofit conversation. But when I can correlate that I have saved $30,000 on the cell phone bill, which will put a client in housing for 365 days, they really want to do a deep dive on the cell phone bill. So really understanding, correlating the technology offerings of how they will affect the client and producing of client services will make these conversations go so much faster and have more depth and weight.
Going back to the nonprofit aspect of this, IT is already underfunded in general in an organization. Resources are always limited. I can only imagine it's even more limited in your neck of the woods. How do you prioritize which projects to go after, which initiatives to do when resources are so limited?
So the key is to understand the core functionality. When I'm at a school, the core functionality is teacher teaching student. You need a teacher, you need a student. It could be imagination time. You don't need a Chromebook for imagination time. You don't need a smartboard to teach friendship. You don't necessarily even need technology to teach math. We can count the apples in the cafeteria. So there is a lot of technology that is offered today that can wait. I don't need to invest in VR classes to enhance imagination time. So that can go into more infrastructure of high-speed internet, well-placed access point, so we can do state testing without the whole network crashing because 300 students logged into a test. So truly understanding the core mission of what's supposed to be happening with the organization makes it so much easier to budget limited resources.
Everyone always wants the latest and greatest, the next best thing, but they never first consider if they even need that or if that fits the problem that they're trying to solve. And suddenly you're buying, like you said, those VR glasses, and really it doesn't actually move the needle of the mission forward at all. And now that's just a wasted resource, a wasted effort that could have been spent into, like you said, like something like high-speed internet. So I like that. It's knowing what you guys are trying to accomplish, and that will guide the decisions that you make.
Yes. And this is why people should bring technologists into the conversation at the beginning, even if you don't think you need technology. Build a plan together versus being midway trying to make the technology fit.
And this is cool because back in the day-ish, IT used to be the order taker. They would just be behind the curtains, not just, what does the business need? We'll do it and whatever. Now, and this will tie into something you said earlier. Now it's a lot like tech people want a seat at the table. Tech is getting so advanced nowadays that businesses need tech. I think someone once said every company is a tech company, whether or not it's a tech company, because we all need tech to move the business forward, which means that to be a successful IT person now, it's not just the hard skills, it's the soft skills. I'm curious, in your podcast, in your writing, when you try to influence the youth to kind of consider STEM career, to go into tech as a woman or a person of color, is that part of it? Is that part also really emphasized? It's knowing the hard skills, but also developing the communication skills, the listening skills, the ego. Talk about that a little bit of how I think it's such a necessary part of the job now. How do you encourage people to develop those skills?
So many young women are conditioned, learn, and practice at home many of the soft skills: nurturing, communicating, providing, making people feel welcome. And some people don't think those skills transfer to the cold, faithless server farm of IT. So really explaining that there are jobs like user experience, like there are jobs like project management, that those skills will excel immediately at if you add the technical skills along with them. So I feel us as an industry, we only show one face of technology. But as we all know, every agency is a technology agency just because they're leveraging technology to use their jobs. So when we advertise the full breadth of technology, I read an article about a woman who created an app so you can use your lunch money to pay somebody's electric bill. And families without electricity can trigger a family investigation. So if you could change a family's life, $22? The average person would be happy to give up a Chipotle bowl. And so this is a technology that is literally changing lives on the ground, developed by a woman who saw a real need and was like, let's leverage technology to get this done. That is not the first story you hear when you Google IT professional.
Yes. This is cool. This is something I've said. I'm like, IT is tough sometimes to write about. This was a thought I had like 2 years ago, not present me. It's not cool. It's not sexy. It's not interesting. No one wants to go into this. No one wants to hear about this. And I think you had a similar thought, but instead of accepting it like I did, you went, no, we're going to challenge the story, the narrative that is being told. You were doing your part, right? Mm-hmm. You were evangelizing, you were sharing. What can I do? And I'm asking this as an audience, right? Like anybody listening, what can I do to help move that narrative along?
So one of the things is recognize the microaggressions. Don't start a girls' code chapter and then offer men's size t-shirts. Don't invite me to your tech convention and there's no women's sizes, so all I get to go home with is the lunchbox. So there are little things that we are doing as an industry contradicting the publications of, yes, we want women here. Like in your advertising, if you have a website advertising with cartoon characters and none of them could be people of color, no matter what you say in your fair application, all should apply, the social cues didn't make me seem like you wanted me when none of your cartoon characters could be a person of color.
How do you not become embittered by the frustrations? How do you turn your frustration into action? And this is more of a personal question now. How do you not get jaded? How do you not get exhausted and burnt out?
Because I have to change a life. I don't have to change the world. Because the life I changed might be the world changer. One of the people who bought my professional mindset journal was so inspired after 2 weeks with the book that she decided to run for a judgeship. She saw an Instagram ad, she got the book, she used it, professional mindset was changed. Her going out, winning the election, made her a person who can now influence the lives of 3.2 million people. So I don't have to change the world. I just have to change a life. And that life could be the world changer.
Yeah. And then I think when you change your perspective like that, it's a lot easier to not get jaded because it's a lot easier to conceptualize changing a life than it is to change 7 billion people. That can get overwhelming pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. What are your, I guess it's a holiday wish list question. And I don't necessarily want to hear more budget, more resources, more time, because that's not just something that you could get. I'm trying to dive in a little bit deeper of things that you wish could happen but can't because it's low priority, and there are other things that are always higher priority. Things that you wish could happen and would make your life a lot easier, but you just don't have the time or the resources to handle that. What is that wish list for you? What are the little things in your org that you're like, oh man, this would be a lot better if we could do this, but I just don't have the time to even devote to it?
Well, I think one thing that anybody could do right now is when donating, donate some unrestricted funds. It is great to offer 500 apples to my food pantry. But if I had some unrestricted funds, I could buy a refrigerator to keep them longer. It is great to want to have every kid to have a Chromebook, but when we don't have universal high-speed internet in the homes, they are giant paperweights. So I would like people, when donating, donate some unrestricted funds for infrastructure that will support your cause.
This is I really like the answers that you choose to give here. I just think it's such a refreshing way. It's always the mission first. It's always the people first. And that is what it is all about when you're in the world of IT. We should be doing it to serve people. And so I just love how all your answers, your wish list is always like, I just want the mission we're doing to be maximized. I think that's awesome. You mentioned, that one person who bought that mindset journal from you and it kind of influenced the way they thought. That's a success story. That's a celebration. I kind of want to dive into that. What are some other things in your life that you celebrate, that you're like, I made impact, I helped somebody? I just want to shout that out and celebrate that. But also just as inspiration for me and for anyone listening.
Yes. So when working with children, the tallest person is always the one in charge. So working in the community center, I do not have direct purview of children. But as I walk through the community center, fixing a phone or access point, there will be a 4-year-old talking about where's the bathroom. And do I offer the child the kindness because they are in my community, or do I scream, that's not my job because I'm in IT? So every successful technologist needs to know you do not go into a company and be successful without adopting the company culture. So when my community members are relaxing and getting rid of the stress of life when they're at the pool club in the summer and they want to know what the Wi-Fi password is so they can read their Kindle by the pool, that is just as much my job as telling a 4-year-old where the bathroom is and helping them find their actual adult of the day.
Okay, past, present, future. Moving forward, what are your biggest priorities, challenges, projects, and how do they support the mission?
So my biggest priority is to continue to evangelize that we can all make time for professional development and that sharing our wins is not being a braggart. When I tell you I'm Microsoft certified, when I tell you I'm a Google certified admin, this is not to toot my own horn. It is for you to file away so when you need help in those areas, you know where to go. If we never talk about what we can do, when those are needed for help, they don't know where to go. And so I don't want anybody to think that their current circumstances dictate their future. If you don't get a year-end bonus because the economy, that doesn't mean that your library card can't get you someplace in 2025.
Finally, to close, and this might not be the last question. If you say something, there might be something that I want to kind of expand on, but what are some of the most important lessons, tidbits, anything that you didn't really share that you kind of want to just share now with me and the audience?
I am speaking for experience. I got my master's degree by getting a 25% scholarship that I read about in the free paper, The Metro, that they offer every morning on the subway. I did not have a palatial home office. I lived in a 1-bedroom New York apartment, and I got that master's degree doing all my homework on an ironing board from a folding chair. I graduated with a 4.0. And 13 years later, that same university offered me the Distinguished Alumni Award. So everyone does not have to stay stuck in current situations due to the lack of resources. Effort and research can get you started on a new path while you await the resources to arrive.
I think this podcast was for the audience, but definitely a lot for me. I just want to say, Kelenda, thank you so much for your perspective and your thought processes and what you do for the world and for the lives that you can touch. I just think it's really awesome. So consider me a follower, a fan, and I'm just lucky to get this time with you to be able to learn about this a little bit more. So I just want to say thank you for your time and for your experience and for your thoughts. I think that this type of dialogue needs to be more prevalent out in the world, and I'm glad that there's someone like you who is doing their part, and I hope it inspires other people to do theirs, and it sure has inspired me. So thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you very much.
We hope you enjoyed this Keeping IT Real episode, and thank you for listening. Make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss a future episode. This podcast is all about celebrating and connecting professional heroes who work hard at IT every day. To continue the conversation and learn how VCOM can help you better buy, manage, and pay for your technology, visit us at vcomsolutions.com. Until next time.